So they did it. They finally did it. They repealed Obamacare after 7 years of trying. Now, because of this, because of what they called, they only needed a 50-50 vote. Sorry, a 51 vote. Now, what happened was they brought John McCain, because previously it was 49 against, in favor of repealing, 50 against repealing. So they brought in John McCain, who has a brain tumor and was using health care paid for by the taxpayers, and he voted to take the taxpayers off of health care by repealing Obamacare, and then Mike Pence came in and broke the tie, so now Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and the Patient Protection Act are now repealed. They are no longer law. Now, some people think this means the American Health Care Act is law. That's not the case. That was gone. Now, they decided to repeal it and replace it later, and we know they're not going to replace it. We know they aren't replacing it, because, oh God. I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the American Health Care Act was just an excuse to repeal Obamacare. But, wow. So what does it mean? Well, it means a lot of things, but let's go over some of the biggest. First off, companies are no longer required to give their employees health insurance. So if you work at a company where health is a serious issue, that could, well, be an issue, because now you aren't insured by law. Now, some Republicans will say that stops jobs, and I'm not going to deny there is some truth to that. However, at the same time, I personally do feel that everyone should be insured. That's why I support Medicare for all. And while I do think Obamacare was not the way to do it, I genuinely don't. I genuinely feel the Affordable Care Act was one of the worst ways to try and get Medicare for all I've ever seen. But I mean, making it so everyone's just so poor they get benefits by default would have probably been a better way. I personally think it was a step in the right direction, if not a misguided one. So that's gone. The individual mandate is gone, so you no longer have to pay fines if you don't want health insurance, which is actually a good thing in my mind. I'm against the individual mandate. I feel that if we're going to have private insurance, we should have the option to get rid of it. Obamacare basically got rid of the one benefit of a completely free market system. I'll admit that right now. But the big one is, now, since Obamacare is repealed, there is no longer any guarantee for coverage under pre-existing conditions. So if you have any kind of condition, you can be denied health insurance. Now, we've seen that be abused. We've seen cases where pre-existing conditions basically meant whatever the insurance company wanted it to mean. Like, there was a story a few years ago before Obamacare was placed into law where this woman had acne and she didn't talk about it on her health insurance signups. Later, she got cancer, and the health insurance company was like, you had acne and you didn't tell us, and you say it's acne, we say it's cancerous skin lesions, so you've already had cancer, and therefore it's a pre-existing condition, and therefore we're not going to cover it. That's the sort of loop, that's the sort of hoops they jumped through. So they didn't have to give her coverage, because that would have cost them money. Again, the American people don't really like the price-gouging middleman in all of this. Just saying. And that's just one of the main things Obamacare... Again, Obamacare was a big law, so we're not going to break down everything it did tonight. That'd take a long time. What this does is basically it takes us back to where we were before. Now, what were we before? We were the Wild West of health insurance. This takes us back to that. It takes us back to being a third world nation in terms of health insurance. Again, every other modern nation we have universal health care. Every other modern nation. The United States is the one exception. In every other modern nation, the government gives you health care. In this nation, the government takes away your health care. Because they were bribed by big healthcare corporations. That's why the Koch brothers support everybody. So that way everybody owes them. I made the video that we can repeal Obamacare and replace it with single payer. This isn't replacing it with anything. This is repealing first, replacing later. And they're not going to replace it with anything. And if they do, under this administration, I bet you it's not going to be single payer. Obamacare has been repealed. And this is going to be... oh, God. It's going to be awful. I'm Ephrom, and good night.